Hi everyone, welcome along to episode 10 of the Desire, Dream, Vision podcast. We've got a great one on the way for you today. Once again, massive thank you to every single one of you who's hit the like button, who's hit the subscribe button. It's great to have you on board and I hope you're enjoying the episodes so far. A massive thank you once again to my friends at D'Artagnan Menswear in Chichester. This episode is brought to you in association with them. Make sure you go and check them out. Follow them on Instagram at D'Artagnan Mens. So my guest this week, I've had the privilege of working with on TalkSport last season. You'll now see them on Sky Sports quite regularly as well. They host the Friday night show on TalkSport, Game Day Countdown. But of course, they play professional football as well at Tottenham, at Wolves, at Portsmouth, and have dabbled in management as well. And are certainly looking to get back into management and coaching at some point soon as well. Pleased to say my guest on episode 10 this week is Jamie O'Hara. Hope you enjoy this one. I spoke to him a few weeks back, which was just before the job at Portsmouth became available. And as we've seen in the last few days, he's thrown his hat into the ring with that one, along with Harry Redknapp as well, which is quite interesting. But there we go. Episode 10 of the Desire, Dream, Vision podcast with Jamie O'Hara. Thanks so much for joining us on the DDV podcast. How's it going?
Great, mate. Pleasure. Good to see you again, Kearney. It's been a while.
Good to have you on, man. Thanks for doing this. First question I'm liking to ask at the moment, which is, how are you? Like 2020 was just incredibly tough. On social media, we all love to show the positive stuff, but it's been really difficult for everyone, whether that be just with work or mental health or health and fitness, a bit of everything. How's it been for you? How are you doing?
I've been, to be honest, mate, I've had ups and downs, right? I've been good in terms of work. Has been great for me. The media side of it's kept going. The radio's obviously kept going. So doing that sort of work with TalkSport has been really good for me, being able to go into the office, keep myself busy, keep myself occupied. But then there's been other parts of it with football and stuff where, leaving Billericay. So not having that sort of routine of going in, training and working with players, which I love. You know, mate, how much I love doing that. So that's been tough. So it's been a sort of bad mixed emotions, really. Some days I feel great, some days have been tough, but I've just tried to stay positive for it all, really.
Yeah, I think that's the key, and just keeping positive as much as we can. So let's talk about your career, how it all started. You reached the pinnacle, Premier League footballer. So many kids grow up dreaming of achieving that. Growing up for you, was football always the aim? Was it something that you always wanted to achieve?
Yeah, mate. I mean, that was all I ever wanted to be since I was kind of 7, really. Just playing football since I was a kid. I was very lucky to be at academies from sort of a young age, really. So I had a great upbringing in terms of education of football. I was started at Chelsea when I was like 7. And then I went to Arsenal when I was 11, right through to 17. And then Spurs bought me from Arsenal when I was 17. So, I had a great sort of education in football. It was all I ever really wanted to do. I had nothing else in my mind apart from making it in the Premier League. So for me, that was just realising a dream.
And that academy journey for you, what was that like? Because obviously you mentioned Arsenal, then you get the chance to go to Tottenham, of course, at the club you support. What was that like?
It was amazing, right? I mean, Arsenal's academy was incredible, the best in the country at that time. I think a lot of teams now maybe caught up with them in terms of what they can offer young lads and bringing young lads through. But Arsenal's academy was always second to none. It was an incredible setup that they had there, and it was great. It was just doing something I loved, learning the game. Trying to progress as much as possible, trying to be involved, with the upper age groups all the time. And it was just always something I was striving to do. And, luckily for me, it was fantastic. I always done well. I was one of the main guys in terms of players that they wanted to bring through. So it was great for me.
At what moment would you say that you knew you were going to make it to an extent and you were going to be a professional footballer? Because I guess there's that stage of everyone's development, isn't there? It's as much as we all want to be that footballer, there's a moment of realization that, do you know what, I'm not going to get there. But then for you, obviously, there's the realization of, actually, I'm going to do this. At what point was that for you?
It's a good question, Kearney. I'd have to say I don't know. I never thought that I couldn't make it. So I always just had a drive and a determination to kind of be there and make sure that I was the best at my age group and always looking to be the best. I think probably when I got to sort of 17, 18, and then I went on loan. I was playing for the England age group, so I knew I had a good chance, and I knew I was obviously, really sort of progressing well. But when I went out on loan to Chesterfield and played first team football for the first time when I was 18, that was when I really kind of was like, I'm pretty good. So I'm gonna really make this dream come true now. But it was tough. I mean, there was tough times when I was thinking, I went on loan to Millwall, didn't quite work out at the start, and then it did. But I went after the Chesterfield one. I went back to Spurs, and then I was still in the reserve team. Wasn't making it. Wasn't progressing as quickly or as much as I wanted. So there were times when I was obviously had question marks, but I just always backed myself and backed my ability that eventually I would play in the first team.
I guess for some people as well, you're at Tottenham and there's an opportunity to go on a loan move. Some people might see that as not a step backwards at all. That's not what I'm trying to say, but a step away from, hang on, I want to be in the first team. And we've seen with other players that have gone out on loan, Harry Kane did it as well. For you, was that an important moment of your career to go out and get that first team football? Because you knew you had a contract, you knew there was a pathway, but you needed that game time.
Absolutely. I mean, it completely made my career, really, going to Chesterfield on loan. It was a massive eye-opener. I was just used to playing at the training grounds and, playing where there was, like a string on the side of the pitch to hold, where the fans stood behind and scouts and agents and that used to come and watch. And then all of a sudden, I was playing League One football in front of, proper crowds, proper moments and games that had to be won and big sort of, big games and big performances that were needed. So it was a massive eye-opener going there. I think in the first game I played really well, but in the last minute I tried to dally on the ball, go round someone and in the middle of the pitch, give it away. And the team nearly scored and the manager went absolutely mad at me after the game. I'll never forget it. And that actually set me up as if to say, this isn't academy football now. This is the real deal.
Nice. So you've learned lots of lessons from that. You then get the opportunity to get involved with the first team at Tottenham and make your Premier League debut. What goes through your mind at that point when you're told by the manager that Jamie, we've seen enough, you're ready for it, here's your squad number, get involved? It
was an incredible moment, actually. I was actually on loan at Millwall. Kenny Jackett was the manager, he just took over, and I was playing well for them. I scored a couple of goals, was in decent form. But one day Ramos took over at Spurs, and he wanted to see everyone that was part of, the squad who was in the first team dressing room. So I went back, not thinking that I'd be involved or anything, not thinking that I'd play. But he just asked what sort of, what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. And I said, I want to play for Spurs. This is my dream. So I trained for a week thinking I would, just be making up the numbers. But obviously I was fit and I was ready and I was flying and Ramos was really into sort of young, fit players. So I just remember Gus Poyet pulling me saying, listen, forget about going back to Millwall. You're gonna be involved. The manager really liked you. So I just, never forget it, be involved in that. Coming on against Portsmouth actually was my debut running out at Fratton Park, which was, an incredible feeling, something I'll never forget.
Nice. And you got your first goal, Premier League goal against Portsmouth as well, didn't you? It's kind of your debut and your first Premier League goal the season after.
Yeah. I think it was the home game. Come off the bench that one. And then it kind of. I think we were losing 1-0, and then me and Bentley come on, and I scored, and then he scored. I think we won the game 2-1. But yeah, Portsmouth was. I went there on loan actually, like the year after, and absolutely loved it. We then got to the FA Cup final. It was a football club that I really hold sort of dear to me. It was a brilliant place, and I should have scored a lot more Premier League goals, to be honest, but injuries and a few bad decisions probably held me back.
Hmm. Let's talk about that move to Portsmouth, because obviously I think that was when Harry Redknapp came into Tottenham, wasn't it? So you'd had that great
Yeah.
spell in the first team, you'd kind of established yourself, a change of manager, which is always a difficult time. How did that evolve and how did that happen? Because obviously, you're still playing Premier League football with Portsmouth, but it's
Yeah.
not Tottenham where you'd really started to make a name for yourself.
Well, they signed Luka Modric, so it was always going to be tough. I mean, Harry loved me. Harry loved me. I was always involved. I'd play sort of 1 in 2, 1 in 3 of the games. I'd start in the sort of the Europa League matches and the Carling Cup matches, and I was always on the bench and always around it. But I wanted more. I wanted to start Premier League games, and I think I was sort of 20, 21, 22. And I wanted to start games week in, week out. And they got off to a flying start when Harry come in, right? They won the first 6 games of the season. So it was hard to go and knock on his door. Modric was flying, Bale was playing, all of a sudden was playing. And it was kind of like, look, I need to just get some minutes under my belt and go, because Modric was so good. So I went to Portsmouth. There was a few clubs who obviously come in for me, in Sunderland and Birmingham, and when they was obviously in the Prem. But I chose Portsmouth just because I knew I was going to play. I really liked the club and I liked what it was about. So I went there, and it was fantastic. The problem was they didn't have a recall in it. Tottenham didn't have in the loan, and Luka Modric broke his leg the week I went. So I was absolutely gutted to start with, but in the end, I obviously ended up having a great season.
No, you did. There's a great story about your time at Portsmouth, which I love, which is obviously playing Tottenham in the FA Cup. And obviously for you, you obviously as a Tottenham fan want Tottenham to win, but at the same chance, if Portsmouth win, you're off to an FA Cup final. And I know there's some bits in the press at the time, wasn't there? Talk us through that one, because I think it's a great story.
Wow, I mean, I messed up really, Kearney. I should have just kept my mouth shut. We obviously drew Spurs in the semi-final, which was played at Wembley. But obviously, yeah, so it was a tough one. I was on loan at Portsmouth, so I couldn't play in the semi-final, which hurt. It was the only team really that you didn't want to face, and I just wanted to play at Wembley. So yeah, I mean, I was at Portsmouth, and I kind of was like, someone phoned me as soon as that draw happened, like a press guy phoned me and said, "Who do you want to win?" And it was just like, well, obviously I'm at Portsmouth and I want to play in the FA Cup final, so I want Portsmouth to win. But it didn't. I should have said nothing, really. It was one of their mistakes, and I was like a young kid, really, and it was stupid of me, and I regret it. But it didn't go down with Harry Redknapp. He was obviously raging, and what actually made it worse was that we did win. And I got to play in the FA Cup final, and it was obviously it was a bitter pill, really, because obviously I would have loved to play in the FA Cup final with Spurs, but it was just one of their things. I didn't play in the semi-final, and they actually won, so it was a massive underdog sort of game. That I didn't think that we'd ever get to the final. And when we did, I was thinking, oh no, Spurs fans are going to rate me.
What's that moment like, walking out for an FA Cup final? I know you've played a couple of finals and been involved in finals at Wembley. Again, that's another one of those dreams, isn't it? Along with being a Premier League footballer. I know for me, growing up as a kid, I was obsessed by the Southampton winning the cup in '76, and being involved or playing in the cup final was always the dream for me. What was that like for you to actually live that, walking out in a cup final and playing in one?
Nothing better, mate. Nothing better. Is the best feeling in the world. Just leading up to the game, obviously just going into the game, walking out at Wembley, like it's what dreams are made of, right? As a young kid playing in an FA Cup final. And we that day we come up against Chelsea, who were the Jose Mourinho Chelsea, who were unbelievable, never conceded a goal, and we were the better team that day. Actually, we missed the penalty. Prince Boateng missed the penalty, and we hung on for dear life. And then we got that pen, and we thought if we scored that, we probably would have really made it difficult for him. But we missed the penalty, and then Drogba scored a free kick. So we obviously lost the final, but it was a massive success story for Portsmouth, because the club was going through, bankruptcy, really, administration, and deducting points and the Premier League, and players obviously not getting paid and all that. And we got to an FA Cup final that season, which was was just incredible.
I think you're player of the season that year as well. What's that like for you to receive an accolade like that from the fans? You know, obviously, because I guess for you as a player, you're focusing on your performances on the pitch, and to get that recognition from the fans, because we know fans, either they love you or they hate you sometimes as a footballer. But to get
Yes.
that recognition must be a nice award to have received.
Amazing, yeah. I mean, that's what you want as a footballer, right? It's about being loved and having the adulation from the fans and the crowd. You know, the rewards of being a footballer are great. You know, in terms of contracts and money and being able to do nice things. But the real stuff, the stuff that really means the most, and the things that you remember, are winning awards like that and having that sort of camaraderie with the fans. I still have a great relationship with Portsmouth. I'm sure I'll be back down there one day in some sort of capacity. And I'd love to be involved with them still. But it's great to have that. They're the nice feelings when you look back on your career and you look at your highlights and you look at them moments, and you know you look back in great sort of fondness.
Not long after that, obviously, you head back to Tottenham. You get a back injury, and you have to have surgery on that. So let's just touch on injuries, because in professional sport, it's a big part of what you have to deal with. You've had that great season. You've been involved with things like that, and then all of a sudden, you have to have a back operation, which is going to hold you back. How do you first of all deal with the fact of, hang on a minute, I'm going to have an operation on this, and then how do you deal with the recovery? Because I guess that's almost just as important of dealing with that upset and negativity and
Yeah.
disappointment that you've got an injury.
Well, it was denial first, really, Kearney. I was in denial of it all, like the fact that I'd fractured my spine and I was going to, after just winning 8 Player of the Season awards and, knocking on the door of so many great things that were going to come. And then I was out for 9 months, ended up having to have surgery, and I'd got 2 titanium screws and a rod in my spine. And it was really bad. And took me a while to get over it, to be honest. It was it was a tough injury to have, really was tough. And I just had to get my head around it, that the doctor was saying that you will be able to play football again, you will make a recovery from it. You might not be the same, but you'll definitely be able to play. So that was my drive, and my determination was to just try and get me back to that sort of fitness. Took 9 months. And it was tough, being injured and seeing players progress and seeing other players come to the fore, and you're missing out on that. So mentally, that's the hardest thing as a footballer to deal with, injuries and going through stuff like that. People don't see that because they just think you're this, well-paid footballer and you're living a life and you're not playing football and you're not on the pitch, doesn't really matter. But when you're injured and you're struggling and it's like having something taken away from you that you love. You just want to be out on a football pitch. And that was definitely one of the biggest struggles of my career, was injury.
And did you have the support mentally with that as well? Because I know it's something we talk about even more now, and it's really important that the spotlight is on mental health, especially with men and especially with sport as well. Did you have that support at the time, and were you given that?
No, I didn't have a great support network around me at that time, to be honest. I was, going out, drinking, and I wasn't playing. So you're trying to find that buzz elsewhere. You're trying to find sort of that feeling of, feeling like a footballer in a way. I was going out drinking and partying, and it was really hard, mate. Didn't have the right people around me. Had the wrong sort of crowd around me, and it really kind of made me deteriorate even more, actually. And when I did come back and I was ready to try and get back on the pitch and get playing, I wasn't in good shape. I wasn't fit, and it really kind of knocked my career for 6 a little bit. And went through some tough times with it. So there's something you look back on. I wish, the one thing that I regret as a footballer is not looking after my body enough, not investing more in health and fitness, and making sure that I stayed at the peak of my game for longer periods of time, because I had all the ability in the world to play 400 or 500 games in the Premier League, but because of my body, and I didn't look after my body enough, I struggled to get the games.
Do you think that kind of led to the move to Wolverhampton, just because that Tottenham side, like you say, was full of kind of players, they were developing and evolving, because you took that time out? Did that then mean that the move to Wolves was the right move for you from a career perspective?
It wasn't, at the time, I'd say it was at the time. You know, I got offered a great deal. Wolves were in the Premier League. They spent good money on me. They wanted to push on. They wanted to kick on as a club, you know. But in hindsight, it was actually a terrible move. Didn't go well for me at all. Got injured again. Manager got sacked. New managers come in. We got relegated. It was just turned into a complete nightmare. And in hindsight, looking back, I realised that when you leave a club like Tottenham, it's very hard to get back to that level. You know, like not many players drop away from a huge football club and then come back. It's very difficult. So I wish I maybe stayed there and sort of ground it out and tried to get back in that team. But Spurs were flying as well, right? They were obviously flying there. Modric and that were at top, you know, on top form. So it was always going to be difficult to get in that team. But I always felt that I was good enough to be in and around it. But yeah, it's one of them. You live and die by your decisions that you make in your career, and some of them you get right, and some of them you get wrong.
Off the back of Wolves, you then went to Blackpool, Fulham, Gillingham before ending up at Billericay. I've seen kind of working with you in the past, you know, it seems like Fulham was quite a good time that you look back on quite fondly from when we've spoken before and being involved at that club.
Yeah, I loved Fulham, mate. And getting to Fulham was kind of my journey back from the depths of, you know, of the bad side of football, you know, where I'd been totally cast aside, almost blacklisted in the game in terms of no one would sign me or anything because they thought I was not professional or whatever, when I really was. I just had some really bad injuries and the sort of the outside picture of me was completely wrong. And it was my time to really change that and really kind of redress that and get that back. So I worked really hard to, I had a you know, personal trainer. I stayed away from any sort of going out and drinking and got myself back and done really well at Blackpool. They gave me a chance, which I really, you know, thank them for when no one would have gave me a chance. They gave me a chance, got player of the season there. And then Fulham come in for me, and Fulham offered me a trial. And for me, it was, you know, I was better than a trial, but I knew I wanted to go to Fulham. I wanted to show people that, you know, I was back and I meant business. And it was kind of a middle finger up to a lot of people who had written me off, you know, people close to me and people not so close to me, but pretty much everyone was writing me off. And Fulham was obviously a fantastic club, a great football club, well run, great tradition. So getting back to that sort of level was, you know, was something I was really proud of.
The road to that point was obviously filled with that negativity for you, some low points and that kind of maybe a sense of failure. For me, I think you can't get back to that top pinnacle without the failure. You know, when we learn to walk as a kid, you know, we fall over. We don't just lay there and say, oh, I'm not up for walking. Just bring me food and water and I'll just not bother with that in life. What was the part of that really kept you going? Because, you know, there's always sometimes like a light at the end of the tunnel. How did you deal with it? And what was the thing that kept you pushing? And was it just a real in-depth belief that you had in yourself? What was it?
Yeah, it was that kind of that belief of the fact that, you know, I'd dedicated my whole life to football and reached the pinnacle of it in playing for Spurs. And, you know, and was I just going to let that waste away? Was I just going to walk away from that? No, was I? No chance. You know, I was going to fight till the very last breath of what I could do in terms of, you know, just getting the opportunity to put me in front of someone to say, like, I can still do this and I'm still good enough and I'm still ready to perform. And you know, I lost my way and had some difficult moments, but that drive and that sort of determination to get me back to, you know, to sort of the top level of football again was, you know, was really good for me and held me in good stead, knowing that I could come through a real bad patch. I learned a lot as a person going through that.
Yeah, I think it does, doesn't it? Whenever you have that kind of adversity, there's two ways to deal with it, isn't there? There's just give up or get on with it and find another way. And I think, you know, if you get on with it and find another way, you know, it always brings even more success. And
well, a lot of the time, Tony, I was making excuses for myself, you know, you know, blaming other people for my for my mistakes, you know, and trying to blame other people. And that time where I obviously got back and drove myself back to Fulham, and that was, you know, I cut all that sort of rubbish out and cut all that sort of excuses out and just said, this is on you. You know, this is not on anyone else. This is on you. You're in this position and only you can change it. So it was, you know, I had to roll my sleeves up, get my shit together and go out there and show people what I was about, you know.
Did you do that just on your own? Did you have people around you? Because I know it can be quite a dark journey doing stuff like that on your own when things aren't going right. You maybe don't want to share the fact that you haven't got that new contract. You just want to keep fighting and hope and fight a way through. Did you have a support bubble at that point to kind of help you get through?
I did, mate. Yeah, I moved back home. Obviously, my fiance, who's my fiance now, helped me massively as well. She stuck by me. Really sort of could see the good in me and the stuff that I'd gone through. So she was massive in terms of pushing me to keep going and getting away from all the kind of bad eggs around me and the sort of people that just wanted to go out with me because I was Jamie O'Hara, a Premier League footballer who paid for a big night out in London. I just got rid of all them people, changed my number, just cut them off, moved back home, lived with my dad for like a year, and just really worked on myself, you know. And just coming home, I was just training every day, doing double sessions, coming home, sleeping, getting back up, training again. Just doing the stuff that I did when I was sort of 15, 16, trying to make it at Spurs. I just kind of brought myself back to that, you know, and it's where I was most happy, right? It's where I was most happy being around the people that actually obviously care about me, to the point where I've actually bought my dad's house now and I live in myself.
Nice. Kind of a happy place for you then, a place where it kind of all came back together for you. That's really cool.
It's a sanctuary, right? It's a sanctuary. Yeah. It's why I had a great upbringing, and you know, this is where when I'm around where I live and the people who are genuinely care about me and I care about them, and just being around here is just, it's always been where great things have happened for me. So now I made the decision to make sure I stay here.
Love that.
Because I have a tendency to want to run away from stuff and want to go and do other things. But, you know, I've been a lot more grounded with stuff that I've been through, you know.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Let's talk about your transition into media. And obviously you mentioned the, you know, reputation you had as a footballer and who Jamie O'Hara was. Big Brother 2017, was that a chance for you to kind of try and set a record straight?
Yeah, oh God. I mean, I don't regret it, right? I don't regret it because a few reasons, right? One, I needed the money, right? I was going through a bad divorce, going through a sticky time. And then, so, you know, the money was obviously good, and I'd never deny that. And two, it was an opportunity for me to kind of put my side of things about who is Jamie O'Hara, right? Because there was just this massive perception of me as a person, you know, going out with, you know, another kind of celebrity person and knocking around with the wrong crowds and being in the front pages instead of the back pages, right? It was just a terrible, terrible place to be. And it was just kind of wanted to show people it was who I was as a person. And Big Brother, I think, is the kind of perfect place for that, because it's 24 hours a day. It's unedited. If you're a twat on there, you're a twat. If you're not, people are going to see that you're not, right? You know, you could go on I'm a Celeb, do a few jungle trials and have a few conversations, but the show's about ant and death. And do you know what I mean? But Big Brother's about you. It's about who you are. And you get a real sort of character description on being on that show. So that's why it was the one I wanted to do. And it went really well for me, right? I think people changed their sort of opinions of me, changed their perception, made it difficult to go back to football after that. But it opened new doors for me in terms of, you know, media stuff.
And how are you finding that transition into media? You know, it's been great to see your journey. You know, I was lucky enough to kind of be involved with the first show that you kind of hosted on TalkSport. How's that going? Mate. Yeah, clearly something you enjoy and you're loving and you're relishing, and you know, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm you know, it's I love it, right? It's another career. It's like sort of doing a YTS all over again. learning from people like yourself, Kearney. Like, I learned from you. You know, obviously hosting shows and being there with, with some of the shows that when I first started, and I'd watch you and the way you present and the way you talked and the way you did things, and you're constant and you learn off people, right? You've been in this, doing this stuff for ages. So, like I did as a young footballer, I'm now doing with media, just watching, Adrian Durham and Alan Brazil, Laura Woods, and, yourself and just trying to make it and make your own way and make your own thing. And, I love it, right? I love talking about football. It doesn't feel like work when you're going into the office and you're just talking about something you love, you watch it's just like, I just try to make it fun. I think the biggest thing, which I had to, was the transition was I've been so used to a routine being a footballer, just working day in, day out. And then with the media side of it, like, it's hard, right? You've got to graft to get jobs. You've got to graft to get in there. You've got to, and not only have you've got to get in there, then you've got to perform on, on the radio or on the TV. You've got to make sure you're researching everything. You've got to make sure you know all your answers. So, and you've got to have a personality. So it's, it's not easy, but it's something I've really enjoyed doing, and, long may it continue,
Yeah, massive. It was good to see you do the Soccer AM stint the other week as well. It was kind of good to see it. I think once you kind of can establish yourself in the media, it just opens so many other doors. So it's kind of really good to see you kind of smashing that and doing so well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about football still. Go on, carry on.
No, I was just saying it's about being reliable, isn't it, Kearney? I always say a lot of people come to me now, players who are coming out of the game, ex-pros and that. And obviously I'm doing really well on the radio and stuff and getting quite a bit of work. And they're like, what bit of advice can you say? And I just say, just be reliable, right? Like, see so many footballers just get offered things and they're like, nah, can't be bothered, or, don't want to travel here and there. And because they're so used to have everything on a silver platter. And that was the biggest thing. Even if it was just like a 2-minute phone call on Talk Sport with Jim White at 12:30, I would always say yes, and the more you say yes, the more you become reliable. And, anything that people wanted from me, that was, even if it was, unpaid work, I would do it, because I knew it would just keep opening more doors for me. And hopefully that will lead to more things, in the future.
No, certainly. We're all about the bigger picture. Those little small things just add up to the big ones. Let's talk about coaching now and football, because you're still involved with football, and I know you've got aspirations for more management stuff. How do you find that? And obviously, I had my little trial down at Billericay. Didn't get a call back, but it's all right. How have you enjoyed that? It was great to see you working. Right. Yeah, thanks, man.
Listen, it was. I absolutely loved the experience. I mean, I went in there as assistant manager, which I really enjoyed, because I was coaching, I was training, I was learning my craft, putting on sessions, being able to lead a group of players, because it's completely different to playing football where you're just kind of worrying about yourself. And then obviously took over as manager in like crazy circumstances where the owner had left. I had to get rid of all the best players. And it became really difficult. We had some really good moments, of us, when I still had the core group of kind of the star players at the club. We had some really good moments, getting to the first round FA Cup, getting Forest Green away, which was was a big game. Getting getting to a cup final, which obviously COVID stopped us playing the final, which was a gutter, because we were really favourites for that. So great experience. Would absolutely love to do it again. It was time for me to leave Billericay, because I think the ambitions of the club have completely changed, especially this season. With obviously it's difficult for them as well with the circumstances have gone on, but it got to the point where it was like taking over my whole life, in terms of it was just getting really draining and really tiring of putting out fires basically every day, and it was not really kind of what I wanted to do anymore as a manager. I wanted to go somewhere where I was going to be really ambitious about getting to the league and really progressing as a football club, and it just wasn't that. It just wasn't that anymore there.
You mentioned obviously you'd love to go back to Portsmouth at some stage. Is that where you want to take the management and the coaching? You want to get into the Football League? You want to be a manager of a professional football club, whether it be Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two? That's the aim?
Oh, absolutely, mate. I mean, the dream is to be coaching in the Premier League. That's everyone's dream, and whether that's just as a first team coach, whether it's as an under 23s coach, whether it's as the manager, you never know. You don't know what opportunities are going to come your way. You just have to believe in yourself. And I love coaching. I think I'm very capable of putting on sort of good sessions and being professional. And I'm always learning. So I'm sure there will be an opportunity to get back in it soon after this sort of crazy situation has stopped a little bit and kind of goes back to more normality. I think there'll definitely be opportunities to get back in it. It's just got to be the right one for me and make sure that I'm enjoying it. Might even, non-league. I love non-league as well, Kearney. It's fascinating stuff down there, and it's sort of old school, in the way it's run and the way the setup is and everything. And there's a nice feel to that sometimes. But yeah, listen, opportunities are few and far between. They're hard to come by these days. There's so many great coaches out there. So you have to hopefully get the right opportunity come your way.
No, certainly. Peak and pit. So we're going to talk highlight, low light. First of all, let's kick off with the highlight. If you had to pick one moment from your career that you could go back and relive once more, what would you say that was?
Been lucky. I've had a few. I would probably say my debut for Spurs would be the highlight of my career, just because it's everything that I built up to from 7, built up to that moment, to that point. It was just a moment I'm always kind of very teary-eyed about.
Nice. And what would be your low light? It's something that you wouldn't change because it helped shape and mold you, but what would you say that low point was?
The low point, probably leaving Wolves as a fouled player, right? In terms of it didn't go well for me, and it was just the whole Wolves experience was just a poor one from the kind of start to finish. So that was probably one of the low points.
One of the key DDV principles is inspiration. I've got a few people that inspire me, Muhammad Ali and my great granddad and people like that. What inspires you when there's no light at the end of the tunnel? Is there someone, something, or a moment that really inspires you?
My children inspire me every day to be better and be a better person and then be proud of me. And my 3 kids all love football, so when I show them my highlights and they show them my stuff, obviously they're proud of their dad, that they can say to their friends and that their dad played for Spurs, and played in the Premier League. So that's something that gives me inspiration to be better every day.
Love that. And the final question, key to success, what would you say is the key? If someone said, I need one piece of advice, someone that's just starting out, what would you say it is?
Perseverance, dedication, sacrifice, and never ever give up. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not good enough.
Amazing. Love that. Jamie, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure, Kearney. Always a pleasure, mate.
Thanks very much for checking out episode 10. Thanks again to Jamie for joining us on the podcast. Some great insight there, and I do hope you enjoyed it. It'll be great to see Jamie back in coaching and management very soon. But in the meantime, we'll continue to enjoy him on Sky Sports and TalkSport as well. Well, once again, thanks to my friends at D'Artagnan in Chichester. Make sure you check them out. Spring is coming. Maybe you need to sort out that wardrobe for the first time, heading out and about once lockdown finishes very, very soon. Thank you very much to the team there for supporting the podcast as always. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your weekend, rest of your week, whatever you're doing. Thanks for checking us out, and make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and follow us on social media as well at Michael Kern.